Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U, where there are no degrees because the learning never stops. I'm Dove, a TA here at Gooner U, and my friend Keith is our stalwart, distinguished professor of Arsenal and football studies. Enter our classroom as we discuss the week's news involving Arsenal, Premier League, Champions League, and international football, all from the perspective of a couple of Americans. This week, Arsenal made our home debut for the season against Leeds United. Hello, Keith.
Hello, Dove. First off, I just want to say, I feel so classy in this.
Yeah, very nice.
Like I could just wear this sort of anywhere and just like feel a little more formal than typical. I mean, not after next weekend, because right after Labor Day, I mean, kind of monster am I? Yeah, this is nice. Arrived on Wednesday, like something else, but which we'll talk about.
Right.
Wednesday was a good Arsenal day. Let's just say that.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of no white after Labor Day, I'd actually looked up the origins of that a few years back. And apparently it was just kind of a mark of your social status where basically It's like, all the higher upper crust people know, it's the end of summer. You don't wear white anymore. And it's like, it has nothing to do with like being against like people who work, like being against labor or anything like that. It was just kind of a mark for the hoity-toities to like turn their noses up at the proletariat who don't know such things.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's always Labor Day as the mark of the end of summer, as like right. Memorial Day is the start of summer. Yep.
But yeah, so, we do have some big news to discuss, but first, as is our tradition, let's begin with a little bit of follow-up from last week. Our short that we posted on Friday covered something we didn't get a chance to talk about on the proper show last week, but this year marks Arsenal's 100th consecutive year in the Premier League, which you shared with me. That was really interesting. Okay. I know what you're about to point out, and I now realize what is wrong with what I said. Right. Mm-hmm. Not technically the Premier League, but the top division.
Well, that wasn't it, actually.
And then also technically not consecutive because of World War II, I guess.
I was going to say, I wouldn't say years, I would say seasons.
Okay, seasons, yeah.
Seasons, right? Because, of course, then both World Wars, the Football League, as it was known, then shut down. So,
right.
But yeah, it has been 100 consecutive seasons in the top flight, which is a mark that no one has done in England. There's a few clubs in other countries and other circumstances who have done it, but not. But in England, yeah, no one else has hit 100.
Yeah, and on that note, what's really interesting to me about it, so we covered on the short, it's only a minute long for anyone who hasn't watched it yet. It's interesting. We go into all the other clubs currently in the Premier League this season and how long they've been there. But one thing that caught my attention all the way toward the bottom, so obviously the last three are Leeds and the other two that just came up this season, and fine, 1 year for them. But directly above them were Fulham, Bournemouth, and Nottingham Forest, who all came up in the 22 to 23 season, which is the first season that I watched. So for me, it's like they've just been in the top division forever. It's how it feels to me, right? But it's also interesting to me that they all came up in that same season and are all still there. None of them got relegated, in contrast to the season since then. Most of the other clubs, if not all three of them, like what happened last season, have gone down after the past couple seasons. So,
yeah, I mean, that's been kind of an unusual thing. All three of them, although it's happened, I think it's happened the last two seasons. All three promoted teams have gone down. Yeah, again, kind of interesting to think about. Fulham, for me, Fulham has been kind of a team that probably, quote unquote, should be in the league because they've almost always been there since I've been watching. Bournemouth had a run, never really did much in it, kind of back. They're just kind of sort of settled themselves in at the moment. Forest is an interesting case because, coming back up was the first time they've been up in 20 years or something. It's been a long time. But you go far enough back, they've actually won the European Cup. They won what is now the Champions League. So they certainly have a history to reference. So they're an interesting case on their own. But yeah, it is interesting they've stayed up. All in very different ways. Fulham has been kind of solidly mid-table team, real pain for anyone to play against. Forest, of course, survived relegation a couple times and then suddenly found themselves near the top of the table all last season. And Bournemouth, sort of I don't want to say a poor man's Fulham, because they're not that much of a difference between them, but similar to Fulham in that they've kind of been around the middle bottom of the table.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just it's interesting to me. It's kind of funny. So they've all been in for whatever it is, like 3 consecutive or 4. I think it was 4 consecutive seasons now. So interesting. Let's roll on to the Arsenal news, of which there was quite a bit this week. So what was the first thing that happened?
Right. So the first bit of news we got out, and I think everyone may have forgotten this in the excitement of what followed. There was an adjustment, I think is the word they used, to the contract of Leandro Trossard. Basically, as I understand it, his deal and his deal has not been extended. It is the same length. It will end in 2027. So another season after this one. But instead, they've given him a raise. He will now be paid more money this season and next than he had been originally. This is not related to anything else that happened. Apparently, this has been in conversations been going on. I think so on the Athletic article. I think they said since they first started having this conversation back in March. This is not something that's or at least sorry, I'm reading it again, May. But certainly it was something that had been going on for some time. And was finally made official. Trossard's an interesting case. We've kind of talked about him as a potential sale. A player who might get them some money, obviously still has some value for the team. Kind of looking both ways on it, because he has value, he might actually get some money back in return. On some level, the pay rise makes that harder, because it makes it harder for the buying team. It lessens the number of teams that could actually buy him, because they can afford both the transfer fee and the increase in pay. On the other hand, we've sort of speculated it would make sense if he would go, but I certainly don't remember hearing any like super concrete evidence or stories out there that, oh yeah, Trossard's on his way out. You hear rumors about some Saudi clubs, but the impression was that wasn't really it was kind of a non-starter, at least for Trossard, if not for Arsenal.
So this is something I don't remember hearing about with any of our other players, or really in any other leagues either. I mean, from my experience, what I would think is you would get more money potentially when you renew your contract. So you would add on time, and maybe the per annum amount goes up. But this seems like a weird move. Like, if you think about regular jobs, like if you're an at-will employee, like we have in most positions in the United States, like, okay, well, you get your salary or your hourly wages, whatever it is, and your company might give you a raise to keep you from going to another job, to keep you happy in your current job. But in these situations, he's under contract. Like, he's not going anyplace else until his contract is up anyway. So why would you give him a raise without also extending it? That seems interesting to me.
Yeah, this is the contract he signed when he joined the team in January 23. So obviously he was the sort of the fallback from Mykhailo Mudryk, which really worked out pretty well for us, actually, all things considered. Some of the conversations, I think, have mostly surrounded the idea that because so many other people have signed new contracts and gotten some pay raises, that this is just kind of a recognition of what he's done over that period. And basically just sort of reevaluating what he's done and what he's paying, presumably also making sure that his contract looks a little bit more like his teammates in some similar positions. So really sort of about keeping a good relationship between the player and the club, because he's going to look around. We've seen a lot of new contracts being signed by Arsenal players, and that's the thing, right? The newer contracts are always going to be paying more than the old ones. Not in terms of for individual players, but for the team as it's being built. And so Trossard's deal, being a couple of years old at this point, has started to fall behind some of his compatriots or some equivalent players. And so you'll see stuff like that. It kind of depends on the sport. Like, you don't see that, for example, in baseball a lot, because they have guaranteed contracts, and frankly, they're making a whole bunch of money anyway. You see this kind of thing not a lot in the NFL, American football, but in American football, the contracts aren't guaranteed. And so they'll sort of tell you that the only thing that matters when you sign an NFL contract, ignore the length, ignore the annual value, just how much money is guaranteed in the signing bonus in like the first season. And after that, it kind of becomes an adjustment of, then guys renegotiate those all the time. Players hold out in training camp and, to get a restructured or a renewed deal. Like these kind of things happen sort of constantly. The contracts are in flux. So it doesn't seem like it's an interesting one. I think for what it says about what the squad looks like, what the plan is for Trossard in general, but I don't read anything into I maybe read into it as far as like, would he be sold or something? But in terms of that, I think it also as simple as they looked at him and said, you deserve more money. And he was, of course, asking for that. And, for club harmony, perhaps made that deal more likely.
Yeah. Interesting. It is also different from regular jobs in that everybody knows exactly how much the other ones are making too. That is more of a factor there.
Yes. Yeah. It is a very, we talk all the time about how people treat their jobs and all of that. And it's like, let's just be clear. They live there. The job is there's a very different kind of job in terms of its public facing ways than anything you and I do.
Right.
Although to be fair, I'm also a public employee. So technically my contract is can be viewed.
Right. And right. I remember public high school teachers pointing that out too, but it's like, yeah, in theory, yes, but it's still, most people don't go to those lengths. And there's still factors you may not know in looking up what the salary would be. Yeah.
There also isn't a separate section of a newspaper describing what I do every day. So,
Yep, there's that too.
But yeah, so that was the big news earlier in the week. That he early part of the week, I think I was on Tuesday. I saw that Trossard had received an adjustment to his contract, and then Wednesday things got weird. It got a little crazy. So first, we woke up to the unfortunate news that Kai Havertz is going to be out for some time with a leg injury. I believe it's a knee injury. Apparently, it's still being tested. How severe is not clear. The last story from The Athletic was from this morning, which all it says is that he's going to undergo further assessments. So we don't really know.
Right.
Probably because Arsenal doesn't know. I mean, I think Arsenal has a better idea than we do, but we don't know yet how long that's going to be, which is unfortunate for him, unfortunate for us in terms of depth at the top. Unfortunate for him, of course, for the opportunity to play. So really just kind of a disappointing thing for everyone. And all of a sudden, we feel like, in some ways you feel like you're in the same position we were at the end of last season, where we're one injury away from Mikel Merino playing striker again. So that's... And then
we found out what Arteta was possibly alluding to a couple weeks ago when you said that there might potentially be more acquisitions forthcoming.
Right. And now I don't think that's what he necessarily meant. So here's what we know. We mentioned his name before. Eberechi Eze was a player, attacking player at Crystal Palace. Key player for them, actually scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final against City, bringing the club their first trophy. He's done an excellent job for them over the last few years, playing for them. But really, a lot of the talk on Eze died down shortly before the season when we signed Ethan Nwaneri to a new contract, which is a lot about, I think, where the two play, the kind of players they are, the kind of position where they play on the field.
Mm-hmm.
The sadder part of that story is that Eze was apparently nearing a move away from Crystal Palace to North London, of course, that being to Tottenham. As I understand it, that was a deal that was close to agreement, but there was a little bit of negotiation. Spurs and Palace were kind of haggling over some of the later details, including allegedly, and I've seen mixed on this, so I want to be careful about saying, but it is part of the story. That part of the story allegedly was that there was a question so Crystal Palace is playing in the Europa Conference League this year, and their first game of their qualifying round was on Thursday. They played their first game, and they wanted Eze available for that. And supposedly, and I've heard some other things that say this wasn't really the case, but supposedly Spurs didn't want that to happen. They wanted him to join them as soon as possible and not play an extra game. Now, I can kind of see everybody's angle on that, right? Because obviously, if you're Palace, you want your best player as many times as you can before he gets sold. If you're Spurs, you would like him as soon as possible, perhaps in time for the weekend, and definitely not playing another game where he could very well get hurt.
Right.
And then what we see later in the day, the Havertz injury news for me at least was in the morning. Later in the day, the story you get is that Arsenal have renewed their interest in Eze, which, okay. And then what you see is, in fact, that they have already agreed upon the deal, and it's over. And it's done.
Wow.
So we should also add another layer to this story. Eze grew up in London.
Yeah.
And actually began his career in Arsenal's academy.
Right, I'd heard that, yes.
And was released, I think he said, this clip's been making the rounds, he was released at 13. Which isn't unusual. I mean, every year the academies have to cull players and sort of decide who's moving on to the next level and who they just, we don't have space for you, we don't have a role for you, et cetera, et cetera. So he was let go. He went on to another club there, was released from them. He sort of bounced around until he was able to finally establish himself, and has always been an Arsenal fan. He basically has asked, who's your favorite club, and he said Arsenal. There's a video of this.
Okay.
Finally gets to Palace, finds a space. Obviously makes his career. Palace has done a very good job of developing players over the last few seasons. They've generally always been good at this sort of thing. There are a lot of analogs between Palace and the fictional AFC Richmond of Ted Lasso, the Ted Lasso universe, which is, for us, what started you and me on this little journey together.
Right.
I mean, really, again, we talk about the FA Cup was their very first trophy of any kind. And they might have won a championship trophy at some point. Anyway, so, this was a big deal for them. And for Eze to be that guy, to sort of build the career for himself, and now for the club to come calling, supposedly, again, going back to the Conference League angle, supposedly we said Spurs was resistant to that. Arsenal said, sure, fine, okay, whatever. Or they were willing to do that because the money they effectively offered Palace the same amount of money. They had been keeping up on the deal. So Arsenal had been listening in. Apparently, the story I was reading today on The Athletic about sort of inside the deal that Eze spoke to Arteta on Wednesday, sort of around the time the Havertz news came out, and Arteta, he's sort of asked about signing, and Arteta sort of said, don't sign anything yet. We might be in on this, sort of hinting at what happened. And frankly, given the choice, for Palace, who cares? They're getting the same amount of money either way. For Eze, a chance to go play for Arsenal was
right.
I mean, how do you say?
Especially instead of, if that really is his club, instead of the arch rivals.
Yeah. I will say, though, at the level they're operating at, I think, I don't want to say he's sort of not anti-Spurs at all. I mean, at that point, Spurs is coming for you,
yeah.
I would, assuming I was good at baseball, I'd play for the Red Sox.
Okay.
Yeah, you kind of you can't, you don't want to close doors or burn bridges at that level. It's okay to say, oh yeah, there are teams I would like to play for or that I grew up rooting for.
Right, but at the same time, if both are available, then the choice would be clear. I can see that. Yeah,
but I think I would be the case. If the other club was United or if it was Liverpool or something like that. If Arsenal's the club, it was always Arsenal. If that's your club, that's the team you want. And given what he's done, and obviously he's talking to Arteta, so he'd have a sense of what he wouldn't just be there to make up the numbers. They clearly have a role in mind for him. Again, yeah. So the fact that we swooped in, got him, and this was a quick deal. They made the call, they made the offer, everything was accepted. We're done. I mean, you remember the protracted saga of Gyökeres. You weren't really paying attention this summer, but Gyökeres was weeks at a time, right? This one, a couple hours, basically. He does that. Oh, by the way, he apparently on Thursday, as Palace was preparing for their European game, Eze called his manager, Oliver Glasner, and basically said he didn't feel well enough to play. And Glasner's comments kind of, I mean, I can't make him.
Yeah.
He says he's not well enough. I have to believe him, even though he obviously clearly didn't. I mean, again, I get it. If you're Eze, you don't want to take the chance on anything. He signs his contract on Saturday morning, half hour before kickoff. He's out on the field. He walks out in an Arsenal shirt wearing number 10. Watch the game up in the box.
Yeah.
Welcome home.
Yeah, it's exciting. Hopefully, we get to see him in our next match. That'd be nice.
Well, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but you know what? We're probably going to have to. That decision might have been made for us.
Right.
For things we'll talk about a little bit. But yeah, a wild week in that regard. And again, it wouldn't have mattered who the other club was, but the fact that it was Spurs and has since caused a good portion of their fan base to completely melt down is deliciously fun.
Yeah, a nice layer of icing on top of that cake. Meanwhile, if we were to shift gears over to Miami and MLS, I don't think this is enough of a segment to turn the lights pink in the room, but I did watch the quarterfinal, or the last third or so of the quarterfinal match against Tigres, which I don't know too much about them, but they are a Liga MX team that I have heard of before, so
yes,
that means something.
They're one of the bigger clubs from Monterrey.
Yeah, but so I caught it. I think Miami was up 1-0 when I started watching, and then I think Tigres had drawn even, and it ended in a pretty exciting way. So that was a nice match. But Miami advances in the Leagues Cup now to the semifinal. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm not watching the Leagues Cup. I'm just gonna, but good for you for watching Leagues Cup.
It worked out. I saw it they were playing. I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to see that.
Yeah.
It was interesting. You were saying earlier that all four MLS teams advanced.
I believe that's what I had seen.
That's especially funny with the format this season, where all four of the quarterfinal matches were one MLS team against one Liga MX team. So,
which was by design. We should.
Yeah, exactly right. It was part of the structure of the competition, which means if all four MLS teams won, then Liga MX is just out altogether, and now it's a question of which MLS team is going to win the trophy.
Yeah, just looking at it quickly. One semifinal will be Seattle and the LA Galaxy.
Right.
It's always a fun Western Conference showdown. The other one will be Orlando and Miami. So there's a little Florida derby there.
Florida derby, yep.
Good times. Yeah. Good times there.
All right, so let's shift over to the Emirates. So this was our second match of the season. This was our home opener. Arsenal played Leeds United, and we came away with a +5 goal difference, continuing not to concede any goals so far this season. That's a streak I like to see.
That's a fancy way to say we won 5-0.
Yeah. A roundabout way, yeah. So they announced toward the beginning of the match that this was Martin Ødegaard's 200th match for the club. So that's a pretty huge milestone.
Yeah, he's been there a while. I mean, the captain, just a critical piece. Just the moment, kind of sad to say, for reasons we'll get into in a moment. But it's great to see him out there. Is still become a really important piece for Arsenal in a lot of respects. It was really exciting when we picked him up on loan and then we were able to sign him permanently from Real Madrid. So,
right.
Real nice.
Yeah. Real nice. I noticed early on the shirt sponsor for Leeds United was Red Bulls, which is kind of interesting to me because I'm used to seeing the shirt sponsors being Red Bulls when it's a Red Bulls team like New York Red Bulls or Red Bull Salzburg or one of their other teams that they have internationally. It's interesting to me seeing them sponsoring a team that isn't theirs.
That is kind of weird. I mean, I remember seeing it on the kits. They obviously had it last year and they showed the kits. It looks weirder on the away kit, or on the home kit, because it's the white with the blue and yellow and then the big Red Bulls logo. It does look kind of out of place, given the rest of their colors. But yeah, that is an interesting one. I don't I don't know. I'm gonna guess it was some sort of offshore gambling site. That was the previous sponsor, and since England, the FA is trying to push those away as sponsors, made sense, I think, to get on top of that.
Yeah, if you were guessing at what it would have been a couple of years ago, I think a gambling company is a safe bet.
Heyo.
So, getting into the nuts and bolts of the match, I wanted to call out one huge moment that happened in the 20th minute. So we were still scoreless at that point, and Leeds took their first corner kick of the match. And clearly, throughout the rest of the match, corner kicks were a huge part of it. But they took theirs, and there was a header that went goalward, and thankfully, it went over Raya's head directly. But he was able to push it up and over the crossbar for a huge save. That was a big moment.
Yeah, two angles to think about in that. One is that, we do have a really good keeper in Raya. That's a really good save, good reflexes, good positioning, all the things you want in those circumstances. The other thing I'd say about that, a little more negative, is, we've talked about how strong we are taking corners. We have continued to show weaknesses as far as defending them, and there's a little bit of me that was a little nervous, like, there's a good chance for them to get a corner. It worked out. Raya made the save, and frankly, that was just about all they had in terms of threat today. I mean, we'll say, I don't want to read too much into the performance because Leeds is not very good. This is definitely a big step up for them and several of their players, including their keeper, especially, I think. Again, they were able to carve out that opportunity, and that's something we were missing in the latter, especially in the latter part or in the middle parts of last season, right? You can see the one opportunity and it goes in the net, and that's how are you ready on the one opportunity they get to prevent it from becoming more than that, and keeping the game scoreless.
Right. Yeah, so then in the 34th minute, we had our own first corner, and Declan Rice took it. He delivered it right where it needed to be. And Jurrien Timber had an amazing bit of contact. I was more and more amazed by it with every replay I saw of it. The first time through, and it went into the goal, is what I'm describing. But the first time, I didn't even know what happened. It barely, and even after the first replay, it barely looked like he got his head on it at all. But when you see it from the right angle and you see that he was really not necessarily in an ideal position, the ball was really low, and he just kind of had a glancing blow, but it was the way he directed it. It was just masterful. It was amazing.
Yeah, I feel like he was kind of leaning back. It was like an awkward position too. Yeah. I mean, honestly, based on that and sort of the way it was celebrated, we kind of, because of course you can't see it real time. All you see is the ball goes into the mixer and then suddenly goes into the net.
Right.
And the celebrations all seemed a little subdued. We kind of thought it was an own goal, that it had gone off a Leeds player and gone in. They finally got a replay where you could clearly see Timbers when he gets his head to it. I mean, that's about just being in position, and then also about Rice just delivering a good ball. I mean, he's really good at that. He's been really good at it, really dangerous. I think he's probably our most dangerous corner taker.
Yeah.
And then Timber being on the end of it. First goal for us, I think they said, since the beginning of last season, I think, was his last goal. I mean, he's a defender, so he's not going to score that many goals.
Right.
But, still nice to see him.
He doesn't in general, but then in the 56th minute, he put in another Declan Rice corner kick. I guess he's like tied for most goals in the Premier League this season at this point. Like he and a handful of other players, two of which are Arsenal players, have 2 goals this season already. So.
Right, yeah, obviously 2 games into the season, 2 goals is up at the top of that list. But yeah, I mean, this one was a little different. This one kind of bounced around the box. They got a brief review as well, checking for a handball. And I think the review was correct. I didn't see any handball
I mean, I saw a potential handball from Leeds. I didn't see anything.
Yeah,
that was Arsenal.
It does. I think Saliba was the one in there. It kind of goes like off his upper chest, but
like his shoulder or something. Yeah,
it was one of those. Okay, yeah, that's worth taking a look at and just checking to be sure. But yeah, you watch the replay. It's clearly nobody touches it with the hand or arm, and then Timber kind of sticks his leg out, and pokes it in.
That was one where I do fault the keeper somewhat. Like, the ball was there in front of the goal for long enough. I feel like he could have done something to either get closer to the ball or whatever, because it was just like kind of loose, bouncing up and down before Timber did. Yeah, he got his foot and like while it was, I don't know, 3-4 feet up in the air, he kind of jabbed it in. I feel like, the keeper could have done something better there.
Yeah, well, when you started that blaming the keeper, I was like, I don't know if you can blame him for that when the ball's bouncing out. That's a tough one. I think when the ball's in that position, it's just so hard for everyone to figure out quite where you're doing and what's going on. We can put a lot of blame on him for some of the others. Not that one's a tough one in those kind of situations. Some of that is also kind of incumbent on the defenders as well to help clear that out. And also, frankly, again, sometimes you just have to credit Rice for delivering the ball in a place where there's like, we talk about like Raya coming out and claiming crosses. Like, if the ball is that high in the center of the 6-yard box, then obviously that's a good position for the keeper. But if it's going to come in and kind of dropped into that group, that's really hard to deal with if you're the keeper, I think.
No, that's true. And between him, but also the defenders, like everyone, there was enough time for somebody to get a foot to it and clear it. That was like great heads up on Timber and making the contact that actually got it in. But I feel like they should have done better getting it clear before then too.
Right, that one's just kind of bouncing around a little bit, and everyone kind of swings at it, and you hope you make contact, and Timber's the one who made the right contact and goes in.
Yeah, so this match, there were enough goals and enough goal scorers. I thought it would make sense to kind of group the discussion in terms of who was putting it in. So let's talk about Saka's goal for a little bit. This was between the two that we talked about. It was one of two goals in between the two that we talked about already. So this was in stoppage time in the first half. And Timber also had an involvement here where he made a nice pass up the field to Saka and just had a beautiful shot. Went like within like a foot of the keeper's right shoulder, it looked like, as it went toward the goal. Just beautiful shot, landed into the back corner of a net. Just really nice. Yeah,
and it's interesting. I saw a video floating around this morning that is a goal he scored against Leeds last season. I think in the same fixture where he cuts in and at a tight angle just roofs the ball. That's a really hard shot. That's an excellent goal. The way he comes in, and again, the keeper I think did very poorly with it. Kind of throws his shoulder at it.
He definitely. That's one of them where he definitely could have done more. Yeah,
it's still credit to Saka. That's a class finish. I mean, to punch that ball in as hard as he does, or like the one place it can go, and he puts it right there. Really, just a great. We can talk about the keeper, but honestly, I think it's just a great goal from Saka.
Absolutely. And you see in the run up to him taking the shot, like he took 2 or 3 touches getting into exactly the place where he needed to be, beating the defender by another step or two that he needed. And just took his time and did it right. Definitely.
And I have to look up because you mentioned it. So Timber does have a Premier League assist that must have been on that goal. I hadn't even picked up Timber on the assist there. Obviously 2 goals, but
it was nice. It was a nice build up to that goal. Also, you mentioned he scored that same goal against Leeds. Did we play them in the FA Cup or the League Cup, or maybe
something
last season?
It was 2 years ago, and they were last in the league. That kind of cutting in. From a tight angle, right, sort of over the keeper's head like that.
Nice. Well, if it works, keep doing it.
signature play. I have to say, I also thought that was a really important goal because, again, we talk about comparison to last season. We dominated possession, we dominated play, we were generating the opportunities, but we were only up 1-0 and off a corner, and you're kind of waiting for that. So our first goal from open play of the season, and all of a sudden it turns a 1-0 game, which, it's a lead, but that can go away really quickly into a 2-0 game. And I think that kind of you saw the next step they took in the second half, and I mean, I don't want to say that the confidence they gained from the goal got them there, but I do think there was, by scoring the goal, it kind of opens the game up a little bit more. And in the second half, we have the space, and that allows us to run away with it.
Yeah, and also scoring that at that moment, like in stoppage time, right before they head to the locker room, like at the last minute when you could have, right, draw one more safety goal. Like I'm starting to pick up some, we talk about safety runs in baseball. It's not something I don't think we usually use in soccer, but it's the same idea, like an insurance goal and a safety goal.
Yeah, insurance is the term you hear a lot of. But I think also, at that point, it's not so much insurance. It's you don't pick up insurance goals in the first half. You're still kind of playing along. And there was another couple of minutes. I think there was an opportunity for them to rack up another one, and there was still a little bit of stoppage time too. But yeah, especially if you're Leeds too. I mean, you think about it, you've kind of been outplayed, but if you can hold Arsenal to 1-0 at the half, okay, you feel good about yourself, and then bang, it's gone. It's 2-0, and it kind of takes a little bit out of you too, I think.
Well, the commentators were also talking about, from Leeds' point of view in this match, that this was adversity they hadn't faced in a long time, because I guess they had a pretty dominant season in the championship last season, maybe, and they won their game against, was it Wolves? I think they played in the first game.
Oh yeah, they put up they put up 100 points last year. They were too good for a championship, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, and then of course they played Wolves, and we've talked about what we think Wolves will be this year. Yeah, I mean, Arsenal's arguably one of the best teams in the world. Not arguably, Arsenal is one of the best teams in the world. So, and playing them away, on their home opener, and the crowd's amped up because of the Eze thing too. Like, to be down 1-0 at the half, the way they had been dominated, would have been a pretty significant victory for Leeds, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And then the gulf in class really becomes evident as the game opens up further.
Yeah. So then if we start talking about the Victor Gyökeres goals, his first came only a few minutes into the second half, right? He had some nice ball handling, got into the box, and he had a shot along the ground that found the goal line, and it was nice. That shot kind of threaded through three defenders on its way in. It was a very precise shot.
That's a goal scorer's goal. I mean, just the confidence to make the run, step around the defender, push it into the corner. Again, could the keeper have done better on that? Maybe, but that's the kind of goal. That's why he's here. That's the kind of goal you want. Like, that's the kind of goal we weren't scoring last year. And that kind of directness and desire on the goal, desire on the shots, that's what he's here for. Again, we don't need him to score 50 goals. Arguably, we don't even really need him to score against the big six opposition. Because what were the games we really struggled last season were games against, maybe not Leeds per se, but sort of like the West Hams or the Fulhams, the teams where you feel like we should have won this game, but all of a sudden we can't convert the chances. We give up one on the other end, and you walk away having drop points. And
and especially they bunker against us, and it's hard breaking them down, right?
And so if he shows up and pots 25 goals against those teams, turns draws into wins, we don't need him to score against the Liverpools and Cities of the league. That'd be nice. But so that was a good goal. Apparently there was some commentary, snarky commentary pregame that he had said he had gotten more touches on his hair in the United game than so apparently after he scored, he does a little of this, and then that gives the old Bane celebration.
Oh, is that Bane? I could tell it's some kind of mask. Okay,
I believe that's what it's supposed to be.
Interesting.
I have returned the Emirates to its people. No. But yeah, so just a good finish, and nice to get on the score sheet too. To get him off and running. I have to dig around and see if we can find it. Earlier in the week, Arscast did an interview with Ian Wright, who's again came to Arsenal a little later in his career. It took him a little while to get onto the score sheet and really get his career going. And of course, retired or left Arsenal as their all-time leading scorer.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, and he talks about the same kind of thing. Like, it's so important to get that first goal because it gives you that confidence to kick on and keep going.
Right. I feel like his second goal is possibly less interesting. I mean, he took a nice resounding shot and sunk a penalty, but at the end of the day, it's a penalty kick.
Yeah. I mean, we could argue. Well, we can talk for a moment about the circumstances surrounding the penalty, which I think are more interesting. But also,
Sure.
it was pretty clear. I think they said he was like 28 of 29 on penalties last year for Sporting.
Oh wow,
he's a goal scorer. He scores goals. He's your penalty taker. And again, that's same kind of thing. So for him to walk out of this game with a brace and playing well for 90 minutes, I thought he was good too. It was a good penalty. We've seen enough misses to sort of make you say, like, hey, you don't underestimate the importance of just a guy you can feel really comfortable stepping up, hitting a well-struck penalty, and there's your goal. Again, that's how you get to 25, 30.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you want, I mean, so let's talk about Dowman a little bit, and by way of talking about this penalty and so get our feelings out there about him, since he made his debut today or yesterday. The match was yesterday as we record, but
15-year-old Max Dowman, second youngest player in the Premier League history. I'm fairly certain the youngest was on the field with him in the form of Ethan Guarnieri, who we'll get to in a little bit. I thought he was good. It's so hard to judge him because you have to caveat everything with he's 15. But I thought he was good, and he displayed some of the stuff. He had some highlights from the preseason tour. He went with them to Asia. Actually, essentially the same as here in the Leeds game. Drew 2 penalties during the run of play. Cutting into the box, drawing tackles, which were later converted. There was some murmuring, amongst people that as they were doing VAR on the penalty and checking it. Let Dowman take it. Let him take it. He was never going to take it. Gyökeres was going to take the penalty. That's what he's there for.
Yeah, I mean, in the circumstance, given that we were 4-0, and we didn't really need the goal. I was thinking that I didn't hear that, but I was thinking, oh, give it to him, because then he would become the youngest Arsenal player to score a goal, even though he's not the youngest to debut. Because Guarnieri took that.
He certainly would have been the youngest to score on his debut. I don't know about youngest because Guarnieri did score a couple goals last season.
Yeah,
well, I guess he's still younger than that. Yeah,
right. He didn't score in that match where they gave him a run out for the last 10 minutes or whatever, right? I think the commentators had said that he would have been, if he scored yesterday, he would have been the youngest Arsenal player to score a goal.
I suspect he'll have some more. Let's put it this way: if he's already making the first team, he's already getting on the field in a Premier League game. I mean, we still have Carabao Cup games coming up. I feel like there are going to be opportunities for him to do that. Mm-hmm. I did think it was a bit of a soft penalty.
A little bit. I mean, it seemed like, and I don't know if it's just because he looked 15, right? We talked about when we saw Guarnieri in that one match. I think that was a 22-23 season that he got that first run out. We saw him basically that one time, and I don't think really since then until he got regular play time last season. And we remarked last season, whoa, that kid bulked up, right? You could tell he didn't look like a scrawny teenager anymore. Dowman definitely still looks like a scrawny teenager, and I wonder to what degree the referee was protecting him a little bit. Maybe
I don't think so. It's interesting. I mean, in some ways, he goes down in the box. Now it's a penalty, so it goes under VAR. And the first couple of times we saw the replay, we're like, oh, I don't know if he touches him, but then you can see the defender clips him. I think
he stepped on his toes, he stepped on the front of his foot. Yeah,
I think someone made the comment. I think it's one of those. Because they called it on the field, there's no way they could overturn it. There's clear contact. If that's one on the field, the referee's looking at it and goes, no penalty. Does the old get up. I think if they don't call it a penalty, the call probably stands.
Yeah.
But I think that was a bit unfortunate from the Leeds player's perspective. But when you lose 5-0, those are the sort of things that tend to happen. When things go bad, they snowball in those kind of games.
Right.
And I think that was the case. Yeah, Dowman's going to get his chances. I'm not worried about him. Yeah, it would have been a fun story, but also it was nice to see Gyökeres walk out of the game with his own pair of goals.
Well, and as I was arguing on Dowman's behalf in my head, like the counter argument is also, it could be a really cool moment for him and great and boost his confidence, or he blows the penalty and it becomes a really bad traumatic thing that happens to him at such a young age. Like that, I when I saw that Gyökeres was taken, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, there was the long time Declan Rice was standing there holding the ball, but I saw Gyökeres kind of lingering behind him. I'm like, okay, yeah, Gyökeres is taking this. They're doing that.
I think they were just waiting for the VAR review to complete. Yeah.
I think also they supposedly there's a point of emphasis where only the captain should be speaking to the referee, and I believe Rice was the captain at that point.
Right, because of the injuries. I think, Ødegaard had passed the armband to Saka, and then I think it got passed to Rice. I think it been right.
Yeah. So I suspect that was also part of it too, because you notice there was a Leeds player there too, standing there. There's three of them, the two captains and the referee. Or I assume the Leeds player was the captain. So I suspect that was partly what was happening as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so no, it's a good debut from him, and I agree. Hopefully, we see more. It was a positive performance. I mean, he was doing good things. He had a couple credible shot attempts. They went high or wide, but he got into good positions to take those, and the shots weren't awful. They weren't too far off. So yeah, hopefully.
I mean, the roof would have come off had he put in either of those chances. Yeah. They were pretty impressive opportunities that he took there. And he doesn't make them, but again, he said he'll be all right. He'll be all right.
Yeah. So the next thing that I had on my list that I wanted to talk to you about was in the run up before we scored our first goal, and even before that first corner kick where Leeds almost scored. We had a clear moment that looked like it should have been our first goal in this match, where they gave up the ball in their own box. It was just a really bad giveaway.
It was a back pass to where I guess under pressure. There was a back pass to someone he thought was there.
Yeah, and it was Gyökeres who was there basically.
Right, yeah.
And then he goes to respond in the moment and responds hastily, I guess, but he ends up kind of slipping and falling to the ground, but still striking the ball and taking a shot, a very, very poor shot,
scuffling
on his way
it
down.
5 feet wide of the post, 5 feet wide of the post. Not
so,
really.
I mean, it was kind of like the football half given and football half taken away. Like we were blessed with an amazing chance that was also, they were blessed with us not scoring from it, I guess.
Yeah, it was I mean, my thought at the time was, a month from now that he probably does score that goal. I mean, some of it is, and it comes to in an awkward position. I think he panicked a little bit, thinking he might be under more pressure than he really, because he is wide open. There's no one around him, and I wonder if he caught, but maybe he didn't quite realize how open he was, so he just decided to strike it first time. But he's kind of awkwardly positioned, and so I wonder if, with another month of games and a couple goals under his belt, if he has just a tiny bit more of the confidence to stop the ball, and get off a good shot from point blank range.
Yeah, I think confidence is maybe part of it. I think it's also just the awareness of where everyone is. Like, I think that's the key thing I'm really learning as you develop in this sport, is just at all times knowing where everybody around you is and keeping that awareness up. And, I'm confident he will get there. And it's probably just that there's a lot to adjust to, where he's got other things that are taking up some of those mental cycles, that would be used to that effect, later on, once he's kind of acclimated more to the club and to the league and all that stuff.
No, I think that's probably right too. But yeah, just kind of one of those that could have been a really interesting moment of the game for either team. Again, if we don't get the corner kick goal later, or if we don't get Saka's goal before the half, and maybe we go in scoreless, that miss kind of looms a little large. Whereas if he pots it in, and all of a sudden, I mean, it could easily have still ended 5-0, only if your Leeds, the game falls apart a little bit sooner than it had done.
Yeah, basically. This game was beset by a couple very significant injuries that we saw. The first one happened to Ødegaard in the 28th minute. So again, we were still scoreless at this point. He got like a kind of hard foul where it looked like he got knocked on the shoulder, but then also landed on the ground on his shoulder, which is probably what did more of a damage. And the physio, I'll use that term when we're talking about English football matches and nowhere else. The physio looks at him, and he returned to play for a while, but then it was a few minutes after that first goal that they're like, I'm not playing anymore, and Nwaneri came in instead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see what the big deal is. You don't run with your shoulder. No, obviously, I'm kidding, of course. That's definitely, obviously, it's a little frightening to see Ødegaard on the ground. I mean, let's put it this way. Say what you will about the shoulder. Much rather there be a shoulder issue than like something in the legs, like the knees or something. But you could tell it was interesting because Nwaneri took the warm-up shirt off and looked ready to come on, but then they had him on the sidelines and he's just standing there like, okay, they're going to work, give him a couple minutes, hard to say. Then obviously a few minutes later he comes off. That's one you don't really know. I mean, again, it's a difference too. Is it his shoulder, which might not be too bad? Is it maybe collarbone, which would be much worse and would obviously could lead to extended timeout? We don't really know. Apparently, first scans. This was the story this morning. The injury not as serious as was first feared. So I don't know. Obviously, in the course of this game, the question is looking ahead to Liverpool on Sunday. I don't know. You could convince me if it's just a shoulder. You could convince me, especially if it's not as serious. Ødegaard might play on Sunday. I don't know. We don't know enough. Who knows what we're going to hear? I mean, Arsenal's going to tell us as little as possible. Of course, right.
It's plausible that he may have come out just because if it were like a collarbone fracture or something, he didn't want to risk aggravating and making things worse, so came out kind of just as a precautionary measure. And if it is just a soft tissue shoulder thing, maybe he's good enough to play. Maybe. Yeah,
and of course we don't. It's too early in the season for sort of the precautionary thing. Like okay, we know Liverpool's next week, but it's hard to sit there and say, we can take off our captain. It's fine. We don't need him. It's fine. I don't like. I'm sure that goes into the thought process as far as bringing him off. But again, I think also there's an uncertainty. I mean, they probably don't know about just from having the physio out there, kind of poking him a little bit in the shoulder and okay, does this hurt? I'm sure it's a little more advanced than that, but or maybe it isn't. I've seen some stuff. I've seen medicine, but anyway, it's probably a little more serious than that, but obviously we're kind of wait and see when it comes to Ødegaard, and hopefully it isn't. Hopefully, not as serious as feared means not serious, but we'll find out we'll certainly find out more in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. So then within the first 10 minutes of this second half, Saka, you saw that he made like a high-speed push as part of like an attempt on the goal. And midway through his run, he started kind of hopping a little bit, and he went down with a hamstring issue. And that really didn't feel too great, even though we'd already scored a few times. It's not something you want to see.
Yeah, that's definitely less good. So it was his right hamstring that was hurt last year, and he had surgery on. This was on yesterday's game was his left hamstring. You could see him sitting on the field. Now, having said that, again, same comment this morning, not as serious as initially feared. Yeah. At first, you're not sure because you watch the game and you sort of see him go down, and your fear, of course, is that it's non-contact, and something that's non-contact is usually very bad. It does look like there's almost like a little bit of a hyperextension or a stretch. That was kind of my impression watching the replay. Again, not a medical professional.
Right. Not that kind of doctor.
Not that kind of doctor, but you watch that and that was like, okay, I wonder if it was almost like a hyperextension. I know it's more joint, like a knee, but something like that, or a bit of a strain. Now, hamstrings are tricky, and a hamstring strain, even a light one, could easily be 3 weeks. So we said, could Ødegaard play this weekend? Well, maybe. is Saka going to play this weekend? I'd be shocked if he's playing. And I think Arteta made a comment, I think in the post game, in his like immediate post game comments, like for Saka to come off, it's serious. He doesn't come off. So that's obviously not great. Again, you hope you hope it's just something relatively mild and he'll be back almost before you know it. But I'm certainly would be shocked if we saw him next weekend. But we'll see. Obviously, we'll sit and wait on the news and hope not as bad as we feared is better than still it could be.
Yeah, definitely. One minor thing I forgot to mention when we were playing the show. In the 66th minute, Brenden Aaronson came on for Leeds, and I recognized his face immediately. He plays for the U.S. men's national team, right?
Yep, his brother Paxton. He went back to MLS. He had been in Europe for a little while, and I think has got, I want to say Colorado, maybe.
Okay.
I think it was Paxton Aaronson. The Aaronson brothers have been around. Yes, he's gotten called up to the national team, and I'm not going to remember which one is the older brother and which one who has gotten more time. But yes, he is definitely a name around the U.S. national team.
Yeah, that's good for him back in the Premier League. That's good. I wanted to check in with you on your updated impressions of our key acquisitions that we saw get more field time this match than in the match before. Specifically, Madueke more than anybody else. Gyökeres we've already talked about a bunch with the goals that he scored, but we saw Zubimendi went 90 again. Madueke, Gyökeres, and Mosquera came in too. How do you feel they're doing?
So far, the one I'm really still not sure about is Zubimendi. There was a story that came out during the week that he was ill. He was sick going into the United game, and apparently they might have gone around. So there was a suggestion maybe Declan Rice also, which might account for the unevenness of their performance.
Interesting.
I don't know that that's true, but it might help us see that a little bit. I thought Zubimendi was better. I think he's still getting a little used to his positioning, and then of course he has to change and adapt to Ethan Nwaneri, who we should also, by the way, I thought did a very good job in reserve of Ødegaard. This is a hard one. Like you talk about United, everyone kind of looked meh outside of our central defense. I thought this game, everyone looked kind of good. We won 5-0. We completely overmatched Leeds, so I don't think anybody was particularly poor. So maybe Zubimendi, you could argue, not quite living up to expectations yet, but I thought he was fine. And I think he'll continue to come good. Mosquera didn't get asked to do a whole lot,
right?
Just as a result of the game. But again, I think he's fine. I think Madueke had a really good game. Yeah. I think his starting is really interesting because we've kind of talked about the left side is kind of the weakest part of the roster, and we've sort of waited for Martinelli to take another step up from when he scored double-digit goals a few years ago, and he hasn't quite gotten there. Yeah. And then, Trossard's there. He's a nice player, but he seems better suited to come off the bench later in the second half as opposed to trying to play 90 from the off. I thought Madueke was pretty good. And now, of course, none of that may matter because he might have to definitely play on the right side. But going into Anfield with a potential front line of, Madueke, Eze, and Gyökeres, it's not terrible.
Where does Eze play?
Eze generally has played more centrally. Okay. I don't know that him on the left is the best use of him, but I think he can play on the left. Probably can play maybe a little bit on the right too, but definitely more centrally located. That's sort of why you saw a lot of things dropping off with the conversation dropping off with Nwaneri, who we've played on the right, but I think is more suited to playing in the middle. That's why I think some of that conversation dropped off. But now, of course, Ødegaard's out, and Eze's a creative offensive talent, a bit of a swashbuckler, a bit sort of like Madueke, gives us a bit more unpredictability. Same with Calafiori, who remains his maverick self, just roaming around popping up random places, except at left back at the course of the game. I thought overall all the new guys who showed up did well. I thought Lewis Skelly did fine coming off the bench for Calafiori as well. Again, kind of everyone looked good yesterday, and that's it's what you want to see.
Yeah. You already touched on it, so probably not too much more to say. But it was notable when Saka came off, and we did have the shift of Madueke going over to the right, and then Trossard going where he always has in the left. Is that unusual? Like, did we know ahead of time that Madueke plays both sides?
Yeah, I think in a lot of people's prediction was that Madueke was being brought on as cover for Saka on the right. That was sort of the expectation of what he was good. He was the Saka backup we had always been hunting for.
Okay.
Which I don't think that's quite right. I think he was always meant to be someone who could play either wing.
Right.
And, as we talk about the weaknesses on the left, that might be an opening there. Or maybe not now. I mean, the idea of switching, we've seen a few times where Saka had to come off, Trossard comes on, and we saw Martinelli switch over to the right side. So
that's true. We did, yeah.
Like when Trossard is a left wing, he plays that side. I think there are others who have the more versatility to potentially go over to the right if that's where they're needed on the field.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. This is, for different reasons than last week, going to be a little bit of a tough question, but who is your player of the week?
I can't say all of them, obviously. I think I don't want to be a slave to statistics, but with a goal and 2 assists, I think it's Jerry and Timber.
Yes.
I thought he played well too, and certainly he's considered more of a defensive right back than Ben White, who's more the offensive one. But Timber can get forward. I thought he did well to break up plays. I thought he did well to put himself into position to score those 2 goals. So for me, Timber with a goal, 2 goals, and you reminded me the assist. I'd forgotten that he had that. That's a pretty good statistical day. So give me Timber as our player of the week.
Yeah, definitely a good call. Just about impossible to argue. And the common sense pick, definitely. But I sometimes like kind of bucking the convention a little bit. And I'm going to go with someone who did not actually directly score a goal and yet had, I don't even know if they're credited as assists. I guess they probably are, but I'm going with Declan Rice for his corner taking ability. It's just so impeccable. And you saw it so much in this match in particular, but even for the 1 goal that we had in the last match too, where, he was kind of a little bit of an unsung hero in that one. Especially, we didn't really talk about that goal, but given that had Calafiori's head not touched that ball, there's a really good chance that still would have in-swung to the goal, or swung in, I guess, to the goal. Just amazing. And you saw it here too. Those 2 goals would not have happened were the ball's not placed exactly where they needed to be. And, there were plenty of other moments of quality from Rice too, to justify it throughout the match. Lots of times where he was just picking their pockets, getting the ball away from them, and then, getting us going back in the right direction. Just a good performance from him. And, honorable mention certainly to Gyökeres and Saka and Timber for their contributions. But I'd say I want to highlight Rice this week.
I thought he was good. You're right. Definitely improved. Obviously, the deliveries. He does get an assist for Timber's goal, the first one.
Okay,
the second one, the ball bounced around too much. They doesn't get that. There's a couple of players you could point to. My second choice was probably Gyökeres for getting the goals the way he did. And I as I said before, a shout out as well to Ethan Nwaneri, who very quietly kept the engine running after Ødegaard goes out. That's again, it's only Leeds. Not very good, but that's a good performance. Madueke was good. This was a game where you can feel good. Everyone can feel good coming out of it, except of course the injured players who we hope are feeling better having come out of it.
Yeah. One funny thing to note at this point in the season, and no, I'm not popping champagne or anything yet, but we are top of the table. And we're tied on points because there's only 2 matches, so obviously a whole bunch of teams are tied on points at the top of the table right now. But actually, no, never mind. I take that back. Looking at it, no, we are tied with Tottenham on points, but we are ahead by +1 on goal difference. We have 6, they have 5. So yeah, actually, there was a bunch of teams that did not win too, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, credit to Tottenham too. After the crushing disappointment of the Eze transfer, went out and beat Manchester City. So, as someone put it, that's frankly, that game is in some ways, that game, it's the ideal result. City dropped points, very important even at this early stage. Or the other option is Spurs would lose again, which is never a bad thing. So, but yeah, we should say that technically this is not wrapped up as far as first place at the end of match day 2. Liverpool still has yet to play tomorrow. We're of course recording on Sunday. Liverpool is at Newcastle.
Okay.
Now Liverpool, just for pedantry's sake, Liverpool is +2 on goal difference. So if they beat Newcastle by 4, they would be tied with us at the top of the table. Which could they? Probably not. But Liverpool beating somebody by 4 is not a crazy outcome. So
no.
But for now, as of this recording, we're top of the league.
And may we stay there for the rest of the season. I mean, I do flash back to a couple seasons ago where we were at the top of the table for like a whole bunch of weeks, many of them consecutive. And we didn't really get that last season, but I'm hoping that, this can at least have that going for it this season. We're shaping up that way so far.
You had to bring that up, huh? We were having such a good day, and yeah, I mean, we'll talk. Well, because I guess as we start to wrap up here, I do want to spend a few minutes just looking ahead. Obviously, Sunday's game at Anfield, massive game, and yet all the pressure is kind of on Liverpool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, let's assume for a moment that they beat Newcastle. I'm sure no Liverpool fan wants to make that assumption, but let's assume but let's assume they do. We both come in with 2 wins from 2. Such an early game, a showdown. But you have to think at Anfield, they almost have to win, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's to have they're probably one of their chief rivals for the title at home. You almost have to win that one. And if they drop any points to Newcastle, oh my. Again, we're coming in a little bit wounded. I suspect no Ødegaard. I'm certain no Saka. But this is what you sign all those depth players for. So massive game coming up this Sunday. And, on the one hand, our early schedule is rough. On the other hand, by the end of September, we've already gone to Old Trafford. We've already gone to Anfield. We've already gone to St. James's Park. We've already played City once.
Yep.
This could
the hard
open
part's
up,
out of the way.
This could open up for us pretty easily if we get the results. A draw is not a terrible result from our perspective.
Yeah.
And a win, of course, would be a real marker. And a loss wouldn't be debilitating either. So
no, and I think it's also worth considering, especially again recently in my mind, how last season went. I mean, get these most difficult matches out of the way at the beginning of the season when we have more healthy players. Now, of course, we did turn out to have 2 key injuries happen in the second match, but in general, in theory, it could be worse. And we're at Anfield after only those 2 injuries and not more. We had more last season. So, get those matches out of the way while we're healthy, and, hopefully that helps later on the season should we need it, should those same and hopefully they don't, hopefully we just don't have those injuries again, that number of them. But
we haven't lost a Big Six game in at least 2 years.
Wow.
It says a lot about where we are, where we've come.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So Sunday at Liverpool, it's on USA Network. What else is coming up next week?
Right. So this is kind of an interesting one. More setting us up for the rest of the season. Obviously, in some ways, the Liverpool game sets us up for the rest of the season in a lot of interesting ways. But also, 2 to keep an eye on. One that I know for sure is the draw for the Champions League phase will take place scheduled Thursday noon Eastern time. That's Eastern in the U.S., so 11 a.m. my time. That was what I had seen. Champions League draw. We're going to find out who we play in the league phase. Should be interesting. Kind of second time around with this phase. They'll wrap up the last qualifying round qualifiers on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. So we'll get some Champions League names, and then probably in a day or 2 after that, we'll have the dates of who and the when and wheres on those.
Right.
The other one potentially, I assume we're going to see, is the draw for the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup. Now, I haven't seen it listed anywhere officially, but This week is the second round of the Carabao Cup, and typically they make the draw right around the time the second ends, or I've seen it sometimes either during halftime or immediately after the last game is played. The last game scheduled for the Carabao Cup this Wednesday is Manchester United at Grimsby Town.
Grimsby Town, okay.
Yeah, remember the leagues. This is the Carabao Cup, so the Leagues Cup. So it is all 92 teams in the top 4 divisions in a knockout tournament. It's a little more regional early on. Grimsby is somewhere in the north. I'm also just looking at the games that day, like Fulham and Bristol. Bristol's on the south coast. Fulham's in London. So it's very regionalized. Teams in Europe get a bye into the third round. So the second round is this week. And then we'll see who we draw in that competition.
Oh, okay. I think that's why I was a little confused why United was playing. So it's because we're in Europe.
Yes, Europe. Qualifying for Europe gets you a bye into the third round. And apparently the third round would either be, and I'm going to have to look at a calendar. It's either the week of the 15th or the 21st of September. It's one of the 2 weeks, and it's based on... one of those is a Champions League week, so we would be in the other one, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't remember which one it is, and I don't have that calendar in front of me. But it'll be in that week, and we'll figure out who the opponent is and where we're going to play them. And honestly, with those, you just kind of fingers crossed for someone not in the Premier League, just for the sake of getting a win under our belt.
Right. It worked out well for us last season. We went pretty deep in that one. So.
Yeah, to the semifinals. Again, hey, the quad is still on the table. We have not been eliminated from any competition. So
yes, it is.
2 games of this. So a busy week. Carabao Cup draw, presumably on Wednesday. I haven't heard that official, but that's what I'm guessing. Don't be surprised if you wake up on Thursday and we know who we're playing. Champions League draw on Thursday, and then Sunday at Anfield. Here we go.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us at Gooner U. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to the podcast version of our show on Apple, Spotify, and some other places. If you're only listening, try watching us on YouTube with the link in the show notes. Your homework for today is to subscribe to us on one of our platforms. Again, those are YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and wherever you listen to podcasts. We record the show using Zencaster. If you'd like to try it out, you can support Gooner U by signing up using the link in the description, which also has links to everything we talked about and our socials. Again, my name is Dove, and you can find me on Twitter at Dove Frankel. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
It was always Arsenal.